Hi, this is Denise Mathew. I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to come in really quick today and just talk about a few of the transits that we're having, the human design transits, as well as the moon's nodes, and a few other things that are happening in the skies. And what I've been noticing, which I found quite interesting, is that a lot of the sort of the idea or the concepts of the gate 10 have been showing up in the real world. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So let's have a look at the transits. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about what we can expect around August 5th or thereabouts. That's when the next nodal transits will happen and the nodes will change. So let's get into the charts. So if you see, today is July 7th, 2020, and these are the current transits that we're having. So see that the south node is transiting the gate 10 and the north node is transiting the gate 15. And they'll be doing that until about the 5th or 6th of August, depending upon where you are. So the interesting thing that I've been noticing about the gate 10 is it's all about, and I did a whole video on the gate 10 and the whole idea of it being all about empowering or not. And when we talk about the South Node, we really are talking about old karma and sort of closing the door on things of the past. Now, you know, it depends upon how you feel about karma. Everybody has a different perspective. Now, there's an astrologer named Anne Ortley, and she talks about the nodes, the North and South nodes, or Rahu and Ketu. She talks about those as she calls them the nodes of fate. And I'm starting to really believe in her theory that they do bring fateful occurrences that happen. So lately, I've noticed a lot of people who are being brought up to the forefront, who are being called out. I've heard the word narcissist a lot, which is very connected to the low side of the gate 10. I mean, the gate 10 is a very powerful gate, and I did a whole video on it, as I said before, and it really is about you either empower or disempower. And when this is turned on on the highest side, it can move mountains. It can make people feel amazing. And I mean, this could be something that if an inspirational speaker, you'd want to listen to them forever. And you just feel better for having been around the energy of the gate 10 when it's on the high side. Now, the gate 10 can also be used for your own personal purposes. And so you empower people so that you can get things that you want for them, or you make people feel good so that they'll give you things, or you know, it's that whole concept. It is a very strong energy or a very powerful energy that can go very, very right or very wrong. And it can look like it's going very right, but maybe, you know, somebody in the background is using it in a different way. And we also know that the North Node is where we're moving, and that's all about the energy of you know, going into the whole idea of humanity and you know, how are we growing, extremes in life, and all the diversities. And I think if there's anything that we can see that's happening in the world, it continues with a lot of causes, with Black Lives Matter, and you know, that is first and foremost, and a lot of other causes that are coming to the forefront. And it really is about the diversity of the world, and how do we bring the equality to everybody so everybody has an equal voice. So some people that I've noticed who have been who have the gate 10 and they have it in a decent place in their chart. And what I mean by that is they would have it in sort of the top 4 numbers, or even in the moon. And when you have a gate in those energies, it really does have a lot more energy in your chart. And so if we're looking here, we see that this is Jeffree Star and also Shane Dawson, and these are just YouTube people. Also, I mean, you know, fairly well known for what they do. Shane Dawson was a YouTube person who did videos and that kind of thing. And Jeffree Star is a beauty mogul. And so you've seen what has happened lately is a lot of bad press about, you know, some past behaviors where they're racist and doing things that were quite inappropriate has come to the forefront. And these people have basically been turned into pariahs. Now, lately, just within the last couple of days, we saw Ghislaine Maxwell, who was supposedly or allegedly a cohort of Epstein, or Jeffrey Epstein. And she was somebody who did, well, what people say, allegedly she did a lot of dirty work for him. I don't really need to get into that. I mean, you can just look her up on Google. But ultimately, I don't have her birth time. But if you notice, no matter what, her incarnation cross, you can see her gate 10 is right up there. And, you know, a lot of people were saying she's been sort of under the under the microscope for at least a year. And just lately, the last couple of days, within the last week, they've decided to arrest her. So it's almost like, you know, the karma is showing up in her life. And then we have Bolsonaro, and if I pronounce that wrong, please excuse me, but he is the president of Brazil. And he basically, from the very beginning of the coronavirus, was not somebody who really believed in it, who said it was just really a small flu and nobody would get very sick from it. And he has just recently, as of today, been diagnosed with being positive with the coronavirus. I do wish that he, you know, I wish him well and that he recovers. But having said that, it's just interesting how these people are being brought to the forefront. Now, anybody who has a gate 10 is probably feeling that there is some energy that's pushing against them, because in human design, we sometimes talk about the gates transiting. So if you have the opposite gate and it makes a full channel, then that would make you have a defined center and that you could feel that energy. But a lot of times we don't talk about the energy that if you have, in fact, like, so for instance, he has a gate 10 in his unconscious sun, and he also has it in Mercury. The bottom line is and also he also has it in his north node. And so what that's saying is that all those planets are basically, and the north node is not a planet, but the node of the moon, all those planetary influences are being connected to by the transit of the south node. So you basically, right now, you're having him have what's called a reversal of the nodes. And those are like quite big times in a person's life that really show some karmic events happening. And the more I watch the nodes in action, the more I see that they really do have a lot of energy, and they are definitely bringing things to the forefront. And I think that there are very few people who have the gate 10 in a prominent spot, or even if they don't have it in a prominent spot, who are not feeling the energy that the gate 10 is pushing on them. And it seems to be more pronounced than the gate 15, but I think that that could potentially be because the gate 10 is such a powerful energy. So if we look at the Mars retrograde, that will be happening on September 9th to November 14th. But basically, Mars entered Aries just about a week ago, thereabouts, and it's going to be in Aries until January. So it'll be there for a very long time. Mars, that's its home area. And so it means that there's a lot more energy for Mars to do what Mars does, which is a lot of things like aggression, war. It could be about being more active, having more energy, and those kind of things. And the three gates that it will be transiting as of when it gets in its shadow period. And the three gates that it will be transiting when it gets in its shadow period, it will be the gate 51, 42, and 3. The shadow period doesn't start for a while yet, so we have time for that, but it does start on August 26th. And when we talk about a shadow period, it just means that the area where Mars is going to be the area that it will go back and forth when it does its retrograde. So it will sort of stay in that small area between those gates that I said for quite a long time. Now, I will later on do a video about Mars retrograde, but for now, I just wanted to mention that it was actually going to go into shadow. It's going to go into shadow in August. So the nodes, as I said, will change, and they will change on August 6th, and they'll go right until November 2nd, 2020. North node will be going into the gate 12, and the south node will be going into the gate 11. Now, if we're looking at the old karma, what are we closing the door on? And that will be the gate 11. Well, the gate 11 is really about peace, social harmony, and those kind of things. Now, I'm not saying we're closing the door on peace and social harmony. So when we talk about the gate 11, we're really talking about this idea that we're stepping away from the illusion and fantasy. Because the thing about the gate 11 is it really is about it can be about escapist behavior. There's a lot of great ideas that you can have with the gate 11, and that it really is a plethora of ideas, and the ideas connect to the gate 56, and they're brought into form because that connects to the throat. But when we're talking about the gate 11, we are talking about sometimes getting lost in the fantasy and not really actually bringing the things into reality. It does sound a little bit like the 41, but there is a little bit of a difference here. And there's a lot of magical energy here, and this whole idea of of bringing magic to the real world, just getting lost in the clouds and just having too many ideas and not really bringing anything into the real world. And we can also look at the idea that I really like what Richard Rudd said about the whole concept of we need to go into the dark in order to find the light. And so is that the theme that we'll be looking at? Going into the dark to find the light. Will we have to step into dark areas in the world to find the light that maybe has been obscured up until now? And we're closing the door. So are we closing the door on the inauthenticity, the fantasy that doesn't really come into reality, the illusions that are really there to be illusions but not there as a benefit to us in any way? So those are the kind of things that we might be seeing in the future coming with the Gate 11 and closing the door on karma. Of course, there's going to be a lot more things. Really, it is talking about this whole concept of paring down the ideas, deciding what you want, timing, and those kind of things. And what I feel the most important part of the Gate 11 is this whole concept of slipping away from inauthenticity, seeing the fake. So we see a lot of people in the world, Instagram influencers. I'm not saying all of them, but there's a lot of people out there who have this illusion or this created illusion of the perfect life, the perfect story, the perfect everything. And so again, are we moving away from this? Are we looking at things from a realistic perspective? Are we going to stop turning a blind eye to all the things that are real in the world because we want to live in a fantasy that has all the fairies and the beautiful things? And yes, fantasy is amazing and there's nothing wrong with fantasy, but if we get caught in the fantasy to the exclusion of the real world, then that's not going to do humanity a favor in any way. So we're going to be moving into the Gate 12. There is a big connection with the Gate 12 and the angelic realm. So is there potential for maybe people having more encounters with angels or more encounters with the angelic realm or alternate realities or the fairy realm or realms that we are not in contact with on a regular basis, or to a lot of people maybe not even real, in what they believe in? But are we going to hear about more encounters with angels and fairies and those types of things? And there's also this concept of, again, this is another way that we are looking at authenticity as well. I mean, there's that same theme. We're pushing forward to find the truth amongst all the illusion. The Gate 12 has also been connected with the ability to prophesize the future, to have things happen that you imagine, just having downloads of prophecies or downloads of insights into the future or insights that you had never expected to have. There is this concept of there's a lot of creativity in it. Another thing about it that we can talk about is this they talk about the hanged man, and the hanged man is really just stopping. It's retreating. It's holding back and waiting for right timing. And so when we talk about the Gate 12, we're really talking about timing. We're talking about not pushing everything out into the forefront right away. It is an energy from the throat, so we're talking about manifestation. We're talking about bringing things into reality. There is a shyness to this energy. So will we step back and not want to share everything that we're talking about? Maybe we're going to step back and step into some creative energy and start creating things that we've always wanted to. And again, authenticity is going to be a big important part of this as well. So if there's anything that can be said about these themes, it's really about this concept that we are stepping away from what's not real and stepping into what is real. And I think what you're going to possibly see is that you're going to see anybody who has always been a fake, or somebody who is like just basically spun their little web and everybody believed in what they were saying, and maybe what they were saying was not true, and maybe it was not coming from a place of authenticity and wasn't coming from a place from their heart. And ultimately, as human beings, if we're discerning, we can see who's true and who's not. And especially somebody with the Gate 12 and the Gate 11, if you have those defined in your chart, you are going to be able to see, it's not they wouldn't call it that the BS detector. I mean, that's a Gate 26, but you will definitely be able to see people who are fake, and it might be repugnant to you. And so how that will affect people who have these energies, it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, if they're called the nodes of fate, what fate are they going to bring? And it seems a little bit more calming as opposed to, the gate 15, which is more about the extremes. But having said that, with Mars going to be shifting into the gate 51, who knows what's going to happen. So then if we look at the transits that are happening, and we also have Saturn, and that's in the gate 60. Now, Saturn remains in the gate 60, but what is important that happened is that it moved from Aquarius back into Capricorn. Aquarius is all about internet. It could be about astrology. It could be about information that we're getting online. And when Saturn was in Aquarius, the feeling was that maybe the information wasn't as forthcoming, and maybe there was things that were being censored, and maybe there were things that were being held back from us. And I'm going to say that based on the idea that we're still in Mercury retrograde, we don't really know what's happening. We don't really know the true information. But as Mercury comes out of retrograde in a couple of days, and we also have Saturn out of Aquarius, and now it's going back into the limitations, structures, and keeping those limitations, we could see more of the shuttering again of buildings and those types of things, because there has been a resurgence of the coronavirus in some places. Now, hopefully that won't happen, but there is potential for that, so it's something to think about. But we also have the, as I say, when Mercury goes out of retrograde, there's a good potential that, there is going to be this concept of things coming into light. Pluto remains in the gate 61, and that's all about transformation. And I think that when Pluto gets done with the gate 61, my feeling is it's really going to change the way we look at mental health, because I think if there's anything that I've heard a lot about since the coronavirus has become, the pandemic has happened, and that type of thing, is that a lot of people have been struggling with mental health, and it could be because that they had been shuttered away, or they'd been isolated, or that type of things. But I have also heard some people talking about who actually had the virus, who actually had the symptoms, were sick with it, were quite feverish, having these really unusual and I didn't talk about this before, but I just thought I'd mention it again, really unusual experiences, and having some sort of this psychosis. So are we going to transform the way we look at mental health? And I think, if everything that we transform, there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup. There's going to be a shakeup before it changes into something. Because the thing about Pluto is it's about transformation. Now, transformation sounds very beautiful, but if you look at, for instance, a butterfly, and I was just watching a butterfly do its thing the other day, and I hadn't realized, but they literally shed their skin to become the cocoon, to go into that stage, and you see them peel that skin back. So it's intense. Transformation can be intense, and we all want to have change in our lives, and we always say we want change. I want things to change, but I want it to be painless. I want it to be easy, but change generally isn't easy. But having said that, when it's all done, we're happier for it. And some of the changes that we never would have wanted or never would have done are the ones that we're forced into, are the ones that are the most beneficial in our lives. And even if we don't feel that way. So that's usually what happens with these Pluto transformations, is that we feel like a brand new person afterwards, but we definitely knew that things were happening as we were having these transits, and as a world, that's what we're having right now. And it is the gate 61, and also trying to know information, and again, that continues to be an issue where we still just don't know a lot of information. With Jupiter, in the gate 61 as well, we're still saying, okay, tell us the information. It's just not coming. But hopefully when Mercury starts to move forward again, we can start to see some of the information and the insights to all the things that have been held back. Because my feeling is that there's been a lot of things that we just don't know, and that have been pretty much suppressed. And I feel like the information has been suppressed, and it will eventually start to show up, because that's what happens. Everything floats to the surface eventually. So Venus is back into motion. It is going over the same gates it was going before. It's in the gate of enthusiasm. So there might be this feeling of, a little bit of ease that we haven't felt in a while, and maybe some enthusiasm for what life is going to bring. And so the one other thing that we can be thankful for is eclipse season is over. So all those big eclipses are done until December. So we have a little bit of break on that. But we do have a lot of retrogrades coming up, and that will be, like I said, Uranus will go retrograde, and also Mars, and just some things to think about in the future. But I'm kind of interested to see how things unfold with the nodal change that's going to come up on August 5th or 6th. And that's probably all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back again soon, and take care. Bye for now.